All right, everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. So today we're going to be talking about ditch fishing. So if you're new here, make sure to like, subscribe. It helps me out a whole lot. Also, if you have any questions, always drop a comment down below. All the baits, gear, all that stuff will be linked down in the description as always. But we're going to cover that, you know, late fall to winter, into winter, all the way to early spring pattern of finding fish in ditches. So if you don't know what a ditch is, or you know, maybe you're a little bit unsure, haven't really ever done that strategy type fishing of, you know, fishing ditches, stay tuned. It's something you don't want to miss. All right, everybody, so let's talk about ditch fishing. One of the first things we're going to do, I'm going to pull up a image of a ditch on your, you know, maps, or whatever type of maps you may have, whether it's Humminbird, Lowrance, Garmin, doesn't matter, it's going to be the same. Typically, these fish will set up in the center of these ditches, and you can identify them on your graph. You can identify them with your eyes a lot of times, so you don't necessarily have to have, you know, mapping to identify a ditch. You can use your eyes or whatever, but at the same time it does help a lot. So let's talk about what they look like. So with your eyes, as far as ditch fishing, those are going to be areas like this right here behind me. Okay, see how it goes from one side's up on a hill, the other side kind of comes up, there's like that little drain in the middle. That's kind of what a ditch is. It's just simply a drain. And you know, you can find these on your main lake, you can find them in creeks, you can find them in pockets. They're just about everywhere on your lake, especially if you haven't never really identified one, or didn't know what to look for. That's what they look like with your eyes. On the contour, like I showed you, it's super simple. You know, you've got a high area on both sides and it comes down. It's just a drain is all it is, like a little creek running underwater, and these fish love to set up in those areas. A lot of times there's submerged vegetation in these areas, a lot of times there's trees in these areas, brush tops, stuff like that, and it makes those fish real predictable from late fall, early spring, you know, and throughout winter especially. They're very, very notorious for getting in those areas during the winter. But with that being said, how do you target these fish? So now, targeting these fish is not necessarily very difficult unless people are fishing it like crazy. If people are fishing it like crazy, then they get pressured and they become harder and harder to catch. But I'm going to give you 6 baits that I use whether they're pressured or not. Well, we're going to start out with that late fall pattern, I guess you could say. One of the first ones that I want to talk about is a flutter spoon. So when that water temperature is still above 65 degrees, you know, you can still have those real erratic baits moving around down there. But you know, once you locate those fish in that ditch, dropping a flutter spoon down to them and using that flutter spoon over their head is a great way and a great technique to get those fish fired up and active. And most of the time when you do that in a ditch, you're going to catch several fish out of that area. Now, when it comes to spoons, if you haven't saw how I would use a spoon, make sure to go check that out. It'll be in my playlist. I'll probably link that video somewhere in the video itself, where you can just click on it and carry you over there. But either way, another great one that I want to talk about during the fall, but you know, it's going to work throughout winter and spring, but that's an underspin, okay? And I'm going to vary my sizes between a 1/4 and a 3/8 ounce. But understand, late fall, middle winter, early spring, all that stuff, you're going to have to adjust your speeds, okay? So, you know, sometimes I will use this bait, especially in the winter, super slow. And I mean just crawling it, and it can be a boring, grueling process, but most of the time you're going to get good bites on that underspin, running it close to the top of brush or down in the ditches. A lot of times I'll use this bait, especially if there's no vegetation really down there, maybe some rocks and stuff. I'll use this underspin and let that blade tick off the top of the rocks or whatever may be down there. But it's a great way to target fish and a great way to get them fired up. Now, the other one I want to talk about, this is one that I talked about earlier. This is that Spunk Shad, Hog Farmer Spunk Shad on a dart head. You can use the sonar minnow, Damiki head, whatever you prefer to use, but I'll take this bait and drop it directly on top of these fish. You know, especially if I'm using like live sonar or something, I'm not going to drop it necessarily right on top of them. I want to get it, you know, just a little past them and bring that bait to them, try to make it look as natural as possible as that bait's moving towards them. But you know, all these techniques and stuff are super simple. You just got to understand, and I have a hard time doing it too. It's a time to slow down. You're really going to have to slow down. I'm not going to take that hog farmer and just sit there and shake it like crazy and make it real erratic or anything like that. What I'm trying to do is just make everything real subtle. So I may be shaking the rod just a little bit, maybe moving that bait up and down just a little bit, but not a whole lot. I'm just trying to beeline that bait straight towards that fish, but slowly, okay, slowly. I'm making a straight line towards that fish, but it's slow. Now the rest of these are kind of going to play into those, you know, winter to early spring, super late fall. But one of the fun ways, I guess you can say, to catch those fish is a deep diving jerk bait, okay? And you know, I'm slowing that cadence down to where it's a pop, 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 okay? You know, I'm not just working it like crazy, just fast, making it super erratic. You know, it's a pop, pop, pause, and that pause can be anywhere from 5 to 15 seconds, and then I'm popping it again, but I'm getting this bait down there deep, because most of the time in these ditches are deep. Now you don't necessarily, I'm not going to say, you know, every ditch is deep, but most lakes, ditches are going to be deep on those lakes. If it's not, you know, you can adjust. So, you know, don't run the double deep. You don't want something that dives over 10 foot like this slash double or double deep jerk bait here by Thunderhawk. You know, you can go like to the slash 110, or you can go whatever jerk bait you use, Mega Bass 110, just the regular, but you know, use these baits accordingly. Don't get so caught up on exactly what I'm saying. Like I always say, understand what's, you know, the depths and how your lake fishes, and then just compare what I'm saying to how your lake fishes, and then, you know, judge on how you want to buy your baits and stuff like that in particular. Now another great one, this is going to fit into that middle of winter category. It's about the only time that I use this, and that's a jigging spoon, okay? So a jigging spoon is a super heavy spoon. It's super easy to get down in those real deep depths. So, you know, if those fish get down to 60 or, you know, 40 to 60 foot deep, you can get this bait down there super quick. But, you know, you're jigging this bait up and down, basically trying to get these fish to react. Once again, I'm not you know, he-manning that bait all the way up, but you know, I'm popping that bait, letting it settle, making it subtle, just little stuff like that, and try to get those lethargic fish to come up and eat this. Because you've got to understand, as these temperatures start cooling off, metabolisms go down. When metabolisms go down, they don't need to eat as much, so they're not going to eat as much. You've got to trigger those predator instincts. Now the other one that I want to talk about is one that I never knew existed until I started fishing this lake, which is Lewis Smith Lake, and that's a blade bait. A blade bait is a great option to target those fish in ditches, rocky banks, anything like that. It's got a super tight wiggle. This is, I mean, it's thin as, you know, a piece of paper almost, or cardboard or something like that. Super strong, but this is the blade bait by Thunderhawk. It's called the Hawkeye, and these baits, you can get them down in those deep depths. You can run them shallow. It doesn't really matter. Now, it says a treble hook bait, so, you know, you've got to be careful when you're fishing around bluffs, rocks, or anything like that. I don't care what blade baits you buy, you get hung up a lot. So, you know, just kind of pay attention to what you're doing. Be focused while you're using this bait, but you can reel it, you can jig it. There's multiple things you can do with this bait. You can adjust, you know, the ring right here, make it run. If you put it up front, you can make it run more nose down. You can put it in the back, make it kind of run up. There's multiple different things you can do with a blade bait, but it's a great way to trigger fish, because you're going to notice as the winter transition gets in here and stuff, you're going to want those baits with that tight wiggle, okay? You don't necessarily want those baits that's, you know, super aggressive and erratic and running everywhere. They're cold. Everything's cold, so, you know, they're going to be slow. You know, I may go to that rock crawler where it's got that slow, wide wobble as it goes over rocks and stuff, where I can just crawl that bait through all this stuff. Or, you know, flat-sided square bills and stuff like that. Blade baits. Jerk baits is another great option, obviously, but you know, ditches are great places to look this time of year, so don't overlook it, especially throughout winter and early spring, because a lot of these fish are going to set up there, and they may be right under your nose and you not even know it. So pay close attention to those. Just because you don't see fish in one ditch, make sure to check your ditches unless you get on a pattern somewhere else, but it never hurts to have a second pattern. Either way, guys, I really appreciate you stopping by, If the video helps you at all, hit that like button. It helps me out a lot, helps us get in the algorithm, helps this community grow. Make sure to subscribe. That also helps me out a whole lot. And then, you know, if you have any questions, always drop a comment down below, or if you just want to talk fishing. I love hearing from you guys. Check out my sponsors links, and everything will be down in the description. You can just click on it and carry you straight to Tackle Warehouse or Thunderhawk or whatever I may be talking about in that video at that time. Salty Captain, all those guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.